Have you ever made a wish on your birthday candles, knocked on wood to avoid bad luck, or told someone to follow their passion? Chances are you have, but here's the twist: you didn't come up with those ideas on your own. In fact, they've been handed down to you from ancient myth stories older than any written book, wrapped in modern disguise. Myths aren't just old tales buried in dusty books. They're alive. They breathe through your language, your behavior, your beliefs, even the way you love, fight, fear, and dream. Without realizing it, you live inside a myth every single day. In this video, we'll dive into the hidden architecture of myth and uncover how it quietly guides your daily decisions, your rituals, your morality, your emotions. By the end, you won't just see stories differently. You'll see yourself differently. Part 1, what is a myth really? Let's start with the basics. What exactly is a myth? To many people, myth means false, a lie, a fantasy, something untrue. But in its original form, myth is far from that. A myth is a symbolic story that helps a culture explain its values, fears, aspirations, and relationship with the unknown. Myths are maps for the human soul. Joseph Campbell, the legendary mythologist, defined myths as the collective dreams of a culture. Just as dreams help individuals process their inner world, myths help societies process theirs. They aren't confined to gods and monsters. A modern myth might take the form of a superhero film, a political narrative, or even a motivational slogan, like hustle culture. The myth doesn't have to be true to be powerful, it just has to resonate. So while we think we're living rational, independent lives, we're often walking the same paths carved by ancient stories wearing new clothes. Part 2, the myth of the hero. Let's talk about one of the most pervasive myths in human history, the hero's journey. Whether it's Luke Skywalker, Frodo Baggins, Katniss Everdeen, or even Steve Jobs, the hero's journey myth surrounds us. And not just in movies or history books, but in your daily mindset, the structure is always the same. A person leaves their ordinary world, faces trials, meets mentors and enemies, descends into darkness, and returns transformed. Sound familiar? This myth shapes how you view success. You're told to leave your comfort zone, conquer your fears, overcome your obstacles. You're not just pursuing a goal, you're reenacting a sacred story of transformation. Society rewards you when you act like a hero, and it shames you when you don't. You push through burnout because the myth says heroes never give up. You view failure as part of the narrative arc, not as defeat. But what if the hero model isn't right for everyone? What if you're not meant to conquer, but to coexist? Part 3, law of romance and the myth of the one. Now let's enter a different domain, love. The idea of soulmates is deeply mythological. From Plato's myth of the androgynous human split in two to fairy tales of destined lovers, we've inherited the belief that there's one true person out there for each of us. This romantic myth governs how people date, marry, and even divorce. You wait for sparks. You seek signs. You believe love should feel like fate. And when it doesn't, you blame yourself or the other person for not living up to the story. But is that realistic? Modern psychology tells us that love is less about destiny and more about daily effort, compatibility, and growth. Yet myths teach us to chase emotional highs, grand gestures, and happily ever after endings. This affects how you interpret text messages, how long you stay in relationships, and even whether you believe in love at all. Part 4, money, morality, and the myth of hard work. Now let's tackle something even more subtle, the myth of meritocracy. In many cultures, there's a deep-rooted belief that if you work hard, you will be rewarded. This is more than just economic theory, it's mythic structure. It comes from ancient stories of trials and rewards, the peasant who becomes king, the poor man who finds treasure after years of struggle, the phoenix rising from ashes. Today, this myth plays out in startup culture, reality TV, and even in school systems. You're told to grind, hustle, sacrifice, sleep, all in service of eventual glory. But what happens when it doesn't work? The dark side of this myth is guilt. If you're poor, struggling, or unsuccessful, the myth implies it's because you didn't try hard enough. That shame isn't just economic, it's spiritual. The myth has judged you unworthy. But reality is far more complex. Luck, privilege, and systems matter. Yet myths are rarely fair, they're just symbolic. Part 5, myths and rituals in your morning routine. You might not think myths show up in your breakfast, but they do. Why do you feel the need to have a morning routine? Why do you journal, meditate, or repeat affirmations? These are modern rituals with mythic structure. They mirror ancient practices where people perform sacred acts at dawn to align with the gods or nature. Lighting candles is now replaced by ring lights, altars by standing desks, but the impulse is the same: to create order in the face of chaos, to align your internal world with a larger story. When you say today is going to be a good day, you're invoking symbolic power. You're setting your place within a narrative. Without realizing it, you're performing myth. Even coffee can be mythic. It's not just a drink, it's a transition, a ritual, a portal between sleep and wakefulness, dream and reality. Part 6, the myth of progress in modern civilization. Let's zoom out. One of the most powerful myths of our time is the myth of progress, that history is a straight line going up, that newer is better, that the future is always brighter. This is the myth behind capitalism, globalization, and even AI. You're taught to chase innovation, growth, speed. Standing still feels like failure. Going backwards feels like death. But this belief has consequences. It creates anxiety. You always have to be improving yourself, your body, your brand. If you stop, you feel useless. It also causes ecological blindness. Nature doesn't work in straight lines, it works in cycles. But our myth says build higher, faster, stronger. And when the myth fails, when progress becomes collapse, we feel lost. Because the story we believed in is broken. Maybe that's when we need older myths, ones that honor cycles, not ladders. Part 7, the myth of the apocalypse. Let's go darker. The apocalypse is one of the oldest and most enduring myths in human consciousness. The idea that everything will end in fire, flood, or judgment is found in nearly every culture. And it still shapes you today. From climate change to political collapse, you may feel that the world is ending. And perhaps it is, but how you interpret that comes from myth. We're wired to see the end as dramatic, divine, or meaningful. You don't just fear destruction, you expect revelation. As if suffering must lead to something deeper. As if collapse must purify. This myth can motivate change or paralyze you. It can inspire action, like Greta Thunberg invoking the mythic struggle for Earth. Or it can cause nihilism, conspiracy theories, and even violence when people feel the myth demands a villain. Part 8, myth and identity. Now let's bring it back to you. Who do you think you are? Your identity is shaped by myth more than you realize. The story of the rebel, the underdog, the gifted child, the black sheep, the chosen one. These are all archetypes. You try them on like costumes, hoping they'll explain your place in the world. Even gender, nationality, religion, and politics come with mythic templates. You inherit them through family, school, media, and society. You live inside the story long before you understand it. And here's the twist: just because a myth is inherited doesn't mean it's right for you. Some people suffer because they're stuck in a myth that no longer fits. They think they're supposed to save the world or sacrifice endlessly or always be strong. But myths are meant to be flexible. When you awaken to them, you can choose differently. So what does this all mean? It means you are never just living. You are story living. Every time you make a decision, feel fear, chase a dream, or judge yourself, you are enacting a myth. But here's the power: once you see the myth, you can question it. You can rewrite it. You can choose a different ending. You can stop chasing someone else's hero's journey and start living your own story, one rooted in awareness, not autopilot. Myths shape your daily life, but only as long as you remain unaware. Now that you see them, the spell is broken, and the pen is in your hands.